When the night was closing in, I was alone and so afraid.
Hey everyone, welcome back. That's right, the Red Crit Zymos is back. If you didn't know, once upon a time, the Zymos could Red Crit on everything, and had unique crit scaling mechanics. Sometime last year, this was ghost patched out with no info. Recently, this change was reverted. As you can see here, infinite red crits all over the place. The game has also changed a fair bit since my original Zymos showcase 1.5 years ago, so let's see what the new things we can bring to the table are. This is the Zymos, poopy crit stats with good status. The biggest issue with this weapon is the bad reload speed, so normally I would recommend finding ways to get around that or using a merciless arcanes. But now we have Afentis, which grants plus 50% reload speed, plus 20% fire rate, plus 100% max ammo, and minus 50% recoil. It's easy to get kills with Zymos, so you just have to throw the spear, stand in the aura, and get a Zymos kill to activate the Afentis buff for 40 seconds. This timer only goes down when you leave the Afentis zone, which also lasts 10 seconds. Realistically, this means your Afentis buff will last for about 45 seconds before you need to reset it. We also now have an updated Amalgam Furax body count mod from roughly 1 year ago. It now gives plus 45% fire rate to secondaries, instead of blast radius for primaries. This one needs nothing special. You just have Furax equipped with this mod, and you always get plus 45% fire rate on Zymos. In fact, we even get a juicy upgrade, because Furax Incarnon exists and is a beast of a melee. If you want to see what Furax Incarnon can do, check out my video at the top right. Zymos damage consists of multiple components. They require a headshot to do anything beyond the standard hit damage. Upon a headshot, there is a delayed AoE explosion that then releases 6 homing projectiles that auto-targets tens of surrounding enemies in a large radius. These secondary projectiles will also explode with their own AoE of equal size to the original hit. GunCO applies normally to the direct hit of your main shot. It ignores the AoE explosion of both the main shot and secondary projectiles, but is multiplicative on the secondary homing projectile direct hit. This scaling, combined with the abnormal crit scaling for red crits, results in millions of damage and allows you to rip enemies apart. Multi-shot does not affect the 6 spores produced by the AoE, but since multi-shot affects the number of AoEs, it is still worth modding on the weapon. So how exactly does crit scaling work here? They both double dip crit chance and crit damage. I have a chart at the bottom of the screen for a quick reference on how crit chance mods affect your scaling. That 5% crit chance, it isn't just 5% crit. Slotting just galvanized crosshairs, and maxing the stacks will put your Zymos at 88.2% final crit chance. Arcane Avenger alone bumps you up to 95%. In the double dip calculation, mod crit and flat crit are multiplicative to each other, so you really want both. Look how high it gets with both crosshairs and Avenger. A 5% crit pistol reaches 322% with only reds everywhere. It's a beast. Crit damage is also squared. So if you're adding Prime Target Cracker for a total 210% effective crit scaling, this is actually 210% squared effect on Zymos' 2.3 times crit damage. See, slotting Prime Target Cracker shows a 4.83 times in the arsenal, but in practice, it's actually 10.1 times, which is so much stronger. If you have Zymos Rivens, you definitely want to roll for crit chance and crit damage. It's insane on how hard this weapon crits. What frames would be best to use with Zymos then? Those with crit buffs, those that enable you to shoot an invincible enemy repeatedly for death sprinklers, and those with unique interactions. Death sprinkler invincible enemies can be done on any frame by subsuming Well of Life on them. Granted, this leaves you open to taking damage from surrounding enemies, and that's where our first framed showcase, Limbo, comes in. But before that, let's look at how I built my Zymos. All of the Zymos builds you use will look similar to this. Punch Through does not allow this weapon to hit multiple heads at once in a line for extra secondary projectiles. Since the secondary projectiles auto-home on heads, then Galvanized Crosshairs is an easy choice. As I mentioned earlier, crits double dip on this weapon, so we obviously want crit chance and crit damage mods. Primed Bane will multiply all damage by 1.55 times on raw damage setups and 2.4 times on Daunt builds. Galvanized Shot is multiplicative final damage on the secondary projectiles, which are what will do most of the AoE killing. This leaves us with only 2 slots for elementals. Your choices are either raw corrosive, raw gas, because only the AoEs are innate toxin, whereas direct hit on main shot and secondary projectiles are IPS, which means you need both toxin and heat mods if you want to get boosted by GunCO on direct hit gas, or Hemorrhage / setups. Now, the gas setup only works with Ensnare, but the others can work without Ensnare. The secondary projectile direct hit is 50% slash and has force proc impact, which can activate Hemorrhage's 70% chance to proc slash. Just keep in mind that your final fire rate needs to be under 2.5 for this to be worth it. I'll let you slash proc 85% of the time. For the Hemorrhage setup, you will also slot Frostbite with Hemorrhage and rely on the AoE explosions being innately Toxin to combine with Frostbite for AoE viral procs while Hemorrhage does the slash killing. For your weapon Arcane, this will depend on how the reload feels for you. If you don't have a reload buff frame or are not bringing Afentis, I would recommend using secondary Merciless to cut the base 3.2 seconds reload down to 2.46. If you do bring Afentis or reload buff frames, you have the option to bring Deadhead for longer lasting stacks at 24 seconds each, and an additional 1.3 times final damage multiplier on headshots. Also, remember the headshots now do 3 times damage at base instead of 2 times, ever since halfway through last year. With Deadhead, this would go up to 3.9 times. For our Warframes, I will first start off with Limbo. All that matters on this Limbo is stacking duration. You could bring Rift Torrent, but it won't be needed because you're killing everything around you and it's annoying to upkeep on the setup, since you cannot control where the secondary projectiles home in on. The real reason why we're choosing Limbo is because he cannot be hit while in the Rift except Eximus abilities, which are easy to spawn and not a problem. In exchange, the secondary projectiles of Zymos are still able to hit across the Rift, meaning you can safely kill everything from inside the Rift. All you have to do is make sure that the main Death Sprinkler enemy is rifted. This is because the main hit of Zymos cannot bypass the Rift and only the secondary projectiles can. As long as you stasis this enemy before you cast Well of Life, it will not rise up into the sky and will not recoil when you headshot it. Now you can freely spam headshots to your heart's content, killing everything around you. But remember to bring Combat Discipline and Arcane Avenger for the red crits. For further details on the setup, check out my original Limbo Zymos video at the top right. Nidus can also pull this off with Parasitic Link on an enemy since it makes them completely invincible while still counting as an enemy. You will want ways to health tank and heal since unlike Limbo, enemies will still be able to hit you. On the other hand, your helmet slot is free because you didn't need to use Well of Life. Teaming Virulence does not work on pistols, so make sure you bring Arcane Avenger since you will be getting hit constantly. Xaku can also pull this off with Gaze, an ability that also makes enemies invincible at Nidus' Parasitic Link. Do keep in mind that Xaku will be much harder to survive on than Nidus, since Xaku does not innately heal and instead relies on stacking mods the health tank, or shield gating, in conjunction with his evasion stats from Vast and Time and passives. On the other hand, Gaze also full strips enemies within the radius, letting you run pure viral Zymos setups that will scale forever. In fact, you could even leave Zymos on Corrosive to deal with a few times you shoot unstripped enemies, since it does so much damage against full strip, it doesn't matter what element you use. Harrow is another top tier frame for the synergy because he gives lifesteal and fire rate from his 2, and infinite energy from killing while his 3 is active. Your 4 gives you the massive flat crit buffs, with Covenant giving plus 200% flat on headshots, which Zymos coincidentally auto-homes on. You can hit tier 11 and 12 crits on Zymos easily this way with Harrow for giga damage scaling. This kind of Zymos setup does not rely on an invincible enemy and instead aims to kill the main enemy you shot in one hit, and nuke everything else nearby. You can use my face tank Harrow setup I showcased recently, which looks like this, which you can see a full breakdown at the video at the top right. Feel free to replace one of the Hunter Adrenaline or Rage with more duration mods or Narrow-Minded. Just be aware that Narrow-Minded would cut into your range of your Condemn for regenerating shields. Or you can use an Ensnare Harrow subsumed over as one for easier grouping DPS. Do keep in mind you'd have to build for range. For that, you can use this Harrow build I originally showcased with Tenet Plinks a while back. Just replace Airburst with Ensnare instead. Once again, feel free to replace a mod for more duration. Since range is important for Ensnare, I would recommend dropping Umbral Intensify for Augur Message or Constitution, and avoiding Narrow-Minded. You will still get 60 strength back from Molt Augmented. The final frame I can recommend today is Yareli. Yareli has strong buffs in the form of her passive, granting plus 200% crit chance to pistols, so long as you keep moving. Zymos is a pistol. Her rework in December also made this passive more forgiving to stick around for an extra second or two even when you stop moving. She also recently received Merulina Guardian, an augment that gives buffs when you kill enemies affected by sea snares while on Merulina. The buff sticks around even when you dismount, meaning you can sea snare something, hop on Meru, get a kill, hop off, and have the buff for the next 30 to 60 seconds. The plus 200% fire rate and reload speed are unaffected by strength, so do whatever you want. It will cut the reload time of Zymos down to 1.1 seconds. Arcane Avenger and Combat Discipline are still important because flat crit multiplies modded crit on Zymos. Especially so because Merulina Guardian does not proc on kill unless Merulina is actually damaged. Combat Discipline ensures you will get the buff by self-damaging even if enemies didn't shoot you while on merit. If you want a full breakdown on the Merulina Guardian setup and what other things you can do with Yareli, check out my video at the top right. Cheers. If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always as soon as possible, like I've been doing with Duviri. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. You don't want to miss out on any of that, do you? And that'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching and see you all next time.